Because the timing is very good. Start thinking about communication, more interested in like 4 years ago. I don't really know. More of it was capital. And but I love. Oh, it was a great opportunity. Again, I felt even if I got people in the game, doing some things that were very, but I think was better. First thing well, no, I knew that it was probably the part I thought was working worst. Whereas I would probably, if I had to do it, but everything was pregame show, first part, first intermission. I did the pregame show, I did the game resets when they rejoined. I did an old better chat for school. That came up 2 years ago. There was compared to what these guys, there's some new guy, a little bit. And I'm glad that. Right. But the parts, but just you're in the broadcast. That way you don't have to prepare ads much. They can expect the guy. Like how here I don't know how. No, they haven't. That guy was out. Oh, was I? I'm glad you read, you know. But it's good. Having not done it, but baseball has its own inherent problems in a different way because it's control. Baseball is like the guy who's will tell you that it doesn't have a clock. You have all this time to tell stories. Talk about stuff with hockey. You have a little bit of time to tell stories and a little bit of time to talk about stuff. But back and forth on the but it wasn't. But I wasn't. But yeah, I'm just saying. Once you get into the overall broadcast, everything is coming in so fast. The game itself moves faster. the pregame. It's just you haven't done it before. Everything is moving at a really fast velocity. So, but thank you. I'm glad you read the article. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, indeed.
He's been waiting for the president.
Well, yeah, he's talking, and that might be.
That could be one. Yes, it could be. If you start at 11:30, it would be probably 12:30 help.
And he didn't. He didn't start nearly on time at all. He started. He started about noon here.
Oh, we did? I thought it was supposed to be earlier.
He was supposed to start at 11:30.
But he doesn't like to do anything in the morning, remember? He doesn't have there's nothing on his schedule.
Well, he might have been up.
Were you surprised at the result?
No.
They should at least have the screw.
I'm looking down here and down there. I didn't even look in the light, but
I just asked.
she's got somebody coming up. Oh, forgot the mic was on. But she has electric shop on the way up. Why did they get on?
You know how that goes.
Yeah. Screw through there.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Nancy Pelosi's press conference on Wednesday. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing. Everyone good? Okay. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Good? Good? No.
So how you focus on the trade issue in Japan?
$250, 28, 2,500, 3,200.
We'll get started in 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. And a good afternoon it is on a great day for the American people. The biggest winner yesterday was the health care for American people, for our seniors and hardworking American families. Health care was on the ballot and health care won. Yesterday, Americans elected an extraordinary class of dynamic and diverse Democratic candidates. Members elected who reflect their districts and who embody the bountiful diversity of our nation. Women led the way to victory, with at least 30 new women coming to the Congress. Is that not exciting? And there's still some races that are not finalized yet, so there could be more. Democrats also secured big wins in the governorships across the country. And while it is my responsibility to win the House for the Democrats, winning the governorships is essential to good policy in our country and open elections and the rest. So victories in Wisconsin, Illinois, Kansas, Maine, Michigan, New Mexico, and Nevada. We're very proud in New Mexico that our colleague, Michelle Lujan Grisham, is now the governor. In Colorado, Jared Polis is now the governor, our current colleague, even though that's replacing a Democratic governor, a great governor, Governor Hickenlooper. So that wasn't a pickup, but it is a Democratic member there. Tim Walz in Minnesota, our colleague, again, winning in Minnesota. So for us, just seeing that the extraordinary leadership of these members going into governor's offices, seeing the increased number of Democratic governorships, it was a great night for the American people. We won because from the beginning, we focused on health care. 2 years ago today, the day after the election, not the same date, but the same day after the election, everyone came together and said, we see the urgency, we want to take responsibility, and that gave us opportunity to protect the Affordable Care Act. That was so essential to the health and financial security of America's working families, and we knew it would be a target of the Trump administration. So just so you know, that by that Sunday, We had mobilized many of the groups outside. They were self-mobilized as well. But we all came together, depending on where, despite where we might be on the spectrum on other issues, to say this was our focus. We made a plan to launch our campaign on the weekend of Martin Luther King Day, you know when that is, in January, and we did. After the president's inauguration, as you know, something historic happened in our country, the Women's March. And much of that was about health care, women's reproductive health, excuse me, health care. The beat goes on. Over the course of that next year and a half, working with the outside groups, and they deserve a great deal of credit, and I'm proud of our democratic unity in the Congress of the United States and our inside maneuvering. That unity was essential to the clarity of our message and our differentiation from the Republicans on that subject. But working together, voting together, we were able to make our case. The outside groups, and we participated in some of this, but the outside groups had 10,000 events across the country speaking out about the risk that was involved in Republican policy in terms of health care in our country. There are assaults on Medicare and Medicaid, there are assaults on the benefit of a pre-existing medical condition being taken away, all of that, so much more. The issue about the cost of prescription drugs, all of those issues by groups, coalitions, HCAN, Protect Our Care, little lobbyists, advocacy groups of patient advocacy groups across the country, labor unions, veterans, the list goes on and on of so many people who were involved in that. Leading up to this being on the ballot, and when people, some of you have said to me, how did this emerge as the issue in the campaign? My answer is, we made our own environment because we knew how important healthcare is, not only to the good health of families, but to the financial well-being of their families, healthcare cost being such a major assault on their economic security. It was, and when we put together our For the People agenda, our first priority was to lower healthcare cost by lowering the cost of prescription drugs. Leader Mitch McConnell went forth and really admitted that Medicare and Medicaid and some aspects of Social Security disability benefits were on the chopping block. The president pulled his punch when it came time to lowering the cost of prescription drugs by enabling the secretary to negotiate for that. So this is very important. That was For the People, lower health care costs, bigger paychecks by building the infrastructure of America, integrity in government by reducing the role of big dark money in the political spectrum. That was our agenda. Our candidates ran with it. But healthcare, healthcare, healthcare in every household in America is an important issue. The man whose office I occupy now, Speaker Chip O'Neill, he said all politics is local. When it comes to healthcare, all politics is personal. And so, again, we made our own environment. While the GOP tried relentlessly to distract and divide, our candidates kept their focus on that subject. And when I say our candidates for re-election as well. Voters delivered a resounding verdict against congressional Republicans' attacks on Medicare, Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act and people with pre-existing conditions in districts everywhere in America. They went in a new direction, a house that will, now they want a new direction, a house that will work to make progress in the lives of America's families and seniors. Democrats pledge, again, a new majority, our For the People agenda, lower health care costs, lower prescription drugs, bigger paychecks, building the infrastructure, clean up corruption to make America work for the American people's interest, not the special interest. Yesterday's election was not only a vote to protect America's health care, it was a vote to restore the health of our democracy, the health of our democracy. Under the Constitution, I'm proud that the legislative branch is the Article 1, the first branch of government. the legislative branch. Right after that beautiful preamble stating our purpose, Article 1, the legislative branch, there as a co-equal branch of the other branches of government and a check and balance on other branches of government. The American people want to put an end to unchecked GOP control of Washington, restoring, again, the checks and balances envisioned by our founders. That's a responsibility we have when we take that oath to protect and defend the Constitution. And we as Democrats are here to strengthen the institution in which we serve and not to have it be a rubber stamp for President Trump. House Democrats will honor our responsibility to the Constitution, as I said, have a concert, how we will do things. We will open the Congress with a rule that will insist upon openness and transparency so that the American people can see the impact of public policy on their lives, putting an end to what the Republicans did with their tax scam in the dark of night with the speed of light, no hearings on a bill that would have trillions of dollars of impact on our economy. That's over. We will strive in that openness with American people as our partners because they will see the impact of legislation on their lives. We will strive for bipartisanship. We believe that we have a responsibility to seek common ground where we can. Where we cannot, we must stand our ground, but we must try. And so openness and transparency, accountability, bipartisanship, a very important part of how we will go forward. We believe that's a responsibility we have to honor the vision of our founders. They gave us, in their declaration, a call for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How beautiful. But they also gave us guidance on how to achieve that. E pluribus unum, from many one. They couldn't imagine how many we would become or how different we would be from each other, but they knew that we had to strive for oneness, recognizing that this is a marketplace of ideas. We have different views on the role of government, and that's a healthy debate for the American people to witness and for us to have. We do so with confidence in our values and our proposals, but also with humility to listen and hear what others may have to say. And so that will be the kind of Congress that we have, one, again, that honors the guidance of E pluribus unum. Last night, I had a conversation with President Trump about how we could work together. One of the issues that came up was part of our For the People agenda, building the infrastructure of America, and I hope that we can achieve that. He talked about it during his campaign and really didn't come through with it in his first 2 years in office, but that issue has not been a partisan issue in the Congress of the United States. Over the years, we've been able to work together regionally, bipartisan, across the aisle, across the Capitol, and down Pennsylvania Avenue. Hope that we can do that because we want to create jobs from sea to shining sea, creating good paying jobs, whether it's about surface transportation, water systems. My colleague, Congresswoman Eshe, was here at Champion on broadband, always on, high-speed broadband across America to end the digital divide, especially into rural areas as well as urban areas, and then schools, housing, and the rest. Those jobs, those initiatives will create good-paying jobs, will also generate other economic growth in their regions. So we hopefully we can work in a bipartisan way in that way. The other issue that we could hopefully work on is lowering the cost of prescription drugs, and that is something the President has talked about. We had it in our 6 for 06 12 years ago when we won the House. 5 of those 6 became law. The one we couldn't get 60 votes in the Senate for was enabling the Secretary to negotiate for lower prescription drug prices. We hope to get that done now because that is a big impact on America's family's budget. And then the third really caffeinating issue for us is integrity in government, to reduce the role of dark special interest money. And I commend all of our candidates for their commitment to the health care agenda, to the bigger paycheck agenda, and also to the good government agenda. They have written letters saying that they want H.R. 1, which is our better deal for America's democracy, to be something they vote on. But I say to them, when you come here, you will have an impact on what that legislation is. You may want to make some additions or some tweaking, but nonetheless, our newcomers will be part of putting together how the agenda goes forward, and we look forward to that invigoration of the Congress. I also spoke to Mitch McConnell Leader McConnell this morning, and how we could work together, especially on infrastructure. I did receive a call of congratulations from Speaker Ryan, and I welcomed that, and we discussed how it is to win and how it is not to win in terms of this. So in any event, the concern that he was expressing was about for some of his colleagues who would no longer be serving. On that point, I want to say something, because in winning this election, not only were we on the right side of history, we're on the right side of the future. This is where we have to go. But when we talk about the challenges that we face, we had to jump over gerrymandered lines all over the country. So when we talk about our success, it's about the grassroots operation, owning the ground. All of these groups that cared about healthcare, many of them out there to help elect people who shared their value about lowering healthcare costs, removing lifetime caps, even annual caps on insurance coverage, and certainly restoring the benefit of pre-existing conditions not being a barrier to coverage. Most importantly, though, are the quality of our candidates. They're spectacular from every walk of life, and some of them from a couple of different walks of life. And when they come here, they'll bring their experience, their knowledge, and especially their values to the Congress. We look forward to that. This is no easy feat to win this election. I hear the president attributing to this, that, and the other thing. But when you think of how gerrymandered the country is, how we hope to change that, but nonetheless, how we were able to succeed in this election is a tribute again to the quality of our candidates, the determination of our grassroots folks across the country, and the values that we share with the American people. In terms of working with the president, I just would say that I worked very productively with President Bush when we had the majority and he had the presidency. We passed one of the biggest energy bills in the history of our country. We passed one of the biggest tax bills in terms of stimulus for low-income people as well as middle-income people in his presidency. And the list goes on. PEPFAR, he wanted PEPFAR, we want it big. And there's so many issues that we work together, even though I vehemently opposed him in the war in Iraq. But the point is that we worked together. The president said, I'll wait for them to send me something. Well, we have ideas and we can send them something, but the fact is if we'd like to work together so our legislation will be bipartisan. We're not going for the lowest common denominator, we're going for the boldest common denominator. Our position will be a consensus within our own party of what we can support, but also welcoming other ideas. So we look forward to a new era in terms of what has happened. It's this past 2 years, it seemed like a very, very long time in terms of the path it has taken us down. When I think of our founders and their courage, their vision, what they had in mind for us, from anyone, when I think of the American people and how beautifully diverse we are and how newcomers to our country have constantly reinvigorated America, when I think of our beautiful planet and of course our own country, God's gift to us, and how it has been neglected and degraded in this past couple of years, I think that there's plenty of opportunity for us to match our legislation with the rhetoric that we are hearing. It might surprise you to know that the president I quoted the most on the campaign trail, who would you think? Ronald Reagan. And I won't read you the whole quote, but I'll read you just one paragraph. Ronald Reagan said, "This is the last speech that I will make as President of the United States, and I want to It's fitting to leave one final thought, an observation about a country which I love. His last speech. That's quite a headliner, right, in your business? Ronald Reagan's last speech. He said, thanks to each new wave of new arrivals to this land of opportunity, we're a nation forever young, forever bursting with energy and new ideas, and always on the cutting edge, always leading the world to the next frontier. This quality is vital to our future as a nation. Goes on to say, if we ever close the door to new Americans, our leadership in the world would soon be lost. If we ever close the door, our leadership would soon be lost. So in that respect for the vision of our founders, the diversity of our country, the beauty of our land, the values in our Constitution first and foremost, we think there's an opportunity to work together. One sign of good faith on the part of the president to work together was for them to withdraw their assault on the pre-existing condition benefit, which the Republican attorneys general across the country have put forth, and which this administration has said they will defend the law of the land. They'll join in that lawsuit. That's just wrong. That's just wrong. So we think, again, as a sign of good faith and in keeping with what they're saying on the campaign trail, prove it, withdraw the lawsuit. So that would be one place that we could start. In any event, next week we look forward to welcoming our new class of freshmen. We will celebrate their diversity, the freshness of their thinking, and the rest. And they will immediately be incorporated into our building of consensus on how we go forward in a very open, transparent, bipartisan, unifying Congress. Any questions? Yes, sir, because I didn't give you last night.
The president warned in a press conference about Democratic investigation into the White House and Trump administration. He said it could halt government. He also said that the tax returns wouldn't be released necessarily because they're under continuous audit. So my question is, are you concerned about Democratic overreach in any way in your investigations? And two, how far are you willing to take the push to get the president's tax returns in this new Democratic majority?
The president also said this was a good day for Republicans. So let's put that in perspective as well. We have a constitutional responsibility to have oversight. That's the balance of power. I'm an appropriator. It was one of the places I was forged in the Congress on the Appropriations Committee as well as on the Intelligence Committee. Both places whose hallmarks were bipartisanship, nothing. We could always, left to our own devices, find our solutions. That, of course, has changed now when the poison pills rain down from on high. But in appropriations and in many of the other all of the other committees, we have a responsibility for oversight. And hopefully, in the course of asking for information, we can just make the request and the information will come in. We're concerned about what's happening at EPA, for example, to degrading of the air we breathe and the water we drink, despite what the president said today. So that's only one example. I don't think we'll have any scattershot freelancing in terms of this. We will have a responsibility to honor our oversight responsibilities, and that's the path that we will go down. We, again, trying to unify our country.
How far would you go to try to get those tax returns?
Look, when our committees, I'm a big believer in the committee system, always have been, our committees will make their decisions and make their recommendations to the caucus. But you can be sure of one thing. When we go down any of these paths, we'll know what we're doing and we'll do it right. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
There's going to be a historic number of women in Congress.
31
of them. I want to know, how are they going to change the institution? And also, with you and your leadership team staying at the top, how are they going to have room to advance?
Well, I have always advanced members into the leadership. They have to decide they want to run. Many people like making their mark in their committees, and that's a decision they have to make. But to your first part of your question, some people have said to me, and I appreciate your question, some people have said to me, now that we have more women coming in, will we have more emphasis on things like child care and this or that? We have a big emphasis on that, and we need to make it stronger in the majority. But that's across the board in our caucus. I don't want women only to be, as important as that is, and it's vitally important to women's role in the workplace, I want women to not just be talking about those issues, because we view every issue as a women's issue. We believe the national security of our country is a women's issue. The economic security of our country. National security, economic security, issues that relate to energy and the rest. They're women's issues. So what I have always tried to do with everyone here is to, if they're interested, and try to introduce them to be interested, is to have a security credential, whether it's on armed services, intelligence, foreign affairs, veterans affairs, Mr. Cummings' Committee of Government Oversight, judiciary and fighting terrorism, to have a security credential. I think this is very important for the face of security in our country, not to just be the men who've been doing it all along, with all due respect to their terrific leadership, but for women to take command and have standing on those issues. And many of our new members coming in bring standing with them already. Some do, some do not. I do think that in terms of the economy and our committees, we have Maxine Waters at Financial Services, so there's already a record of high leadership on issues that relate to the economic security of our country. We have, I think, 4 new women members on the Ways and Means Committee just this past year, when usually there'd be 1 or maybe 1 or 2, but an infusion of 4 more new members. So again, in all of these issues, I want women to take ownership of what would be traditionally not as highly visible roles for them. And that's one of the ways that they will change the Congress, so that when the White House or the administration, whatever administration is, has to report to leadership in the Congress at any level about the safety of our country, they'll be talking to the full diversity of our country, our women, people of color, LGBTQ, and I think that's a very positive thing, because people in the public will see people who share their values, their experience, their concern, making decisions about the safety and security of our country.
Many of the women that have been elected have said that they're not sure they can support you to be the Speaker of the House. You were the first woman Speaker of the House. Are you confident that you are going to be the next Speaker of the House?
Yes,
what
I
do you say to those women?
Yes, I am. What I say to those women, congratulations on your election. Welcome.
Case to members as to why you should be Speaker.
I've answered that question. Let me just say this in one sentence. I heard the President say, I deserve to be the Speaker. I don't think anybody deserves anything. It's not about what you have done, it's what you can do. What you have done in the past speaks to your credentials, but it's about what you can do. And I think I'm the best person to go forward to unify, to negotiate. I'm a good negotiator, as anyone can see in terms of how we have won every negotiation so far. The only one we didn't win, because it wasn't a negotiation, was the GOP tax scam in the dark of night and the speed of light, as I said earlier. So I think that my case is about being the best person for how we go forward, and I'm not going to answer any more questions on that subject. We saw something this morning that challenges the conscience of our country. We saw something this morning that shows a differentiation in respect for the diversity of our country. We have to try to bridge that gap, to bring people together, and that I think I can do a good job at that. But I'm not going to spend any, I'd rather answer questions about policy and the rest. And the record will speak for itself. Yes, ma'am.
The President said this morning, he made clear that if Democrats launch investigations, that any hopes for bipartisanship is off. Do you have any concerns that these investigations could jeopardize your opportunities to legislate?
We do not intend to abandon or relinquish our responsibility as Article 1, the first branch of government, and our responsibilities for accountability, for oversight, and the rest. This doesn't mean we go looking for a fight, but it means that if we see a need to go forward, we will. But that will be the work of our committees, every committee has oversight responsibility. Congresswoman Esch on Energy and Commerce, and that's a big oversight committee, as some of you probably are aware. But specifically to some of the concerns that the President may have, the Judiciary Committee, the Intelligence Committee, the Oversight Committee, the, well, there are a number of committees that, depending on how we go down the path, the Financial Services Committee, did I say Intelligence? Oh, Homeland Security Committee, because of course we are shamed as a nation by a policy that takes babies out of the arms of their mothers, that builds tents and all the rest to house people that they're and their separation of families. So we want to look into that. And we would hope that we could do so by simply having oversight. If in fact it requires a subpoena, I hope not, but so be it.
In hindsight, do you think it was a mistake for Democrats to stay silent on all the heated rhetoric from the president and some Republican senators? I mean, the Republicans kept the control of the Senate, and some of them ran on this anti-immigrant rhetoric. So are you, in hindsight, maybe thinking that that was a mistake for Democrats to stay silent?
No, I do not. I urged our colleagues not to take the bait on what the president was putting out there. It's a very dangerous issue on the campaign trail because of the misrepresentations that are put out there. You don't win a fight by fighting that same fight. You win by sticking with the program for the people, lower health care costs, bigger paychecks, cleaner government. That produced a big victory for us in spite of the gerrymandering that the Republicans have done. I have no regret.
McConnell is pledging to, again, vote on the border wall and border security funding that he claims Democrats push back on.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't know. I didn't watch his press conference. I don't know exactly what he said, but what I will say is this. One of the biggest resources that we have, when I say we, the American people, and we as representatives, is public sentiment. You've heard me say, many of you again and again, Abraham Lincoln, President Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. And I do believe that one of the reasons that we will be successful in our negotiations is because the people will see the impact of what is being proposed on their lives, on their values, on our country. And so that is, look, President Ronald Reagan, President George Herbert Walker Bush, President Clinton, President George W. Bush, President Obama, all valued the contribution of newcomers to our country with their hope, their determination, their optimism, their courage to make the future better for their families. They're all American traits. And when they come with those values, they make America more American. Other presidents saw that. This president used it as in fear-mongering. I just don't think that's right. But in order to get in a position to fight it, we had to win on the issues that strike right to the financial security of America's working families, and those are our values. Yes, ma'am.
Last question.
Both you and the president have spoken about opportunities for bipartisanship. President Trump said that he actually believes there will be less gridlock with the divided Washington. What gives you any confidence that with Democrats in control, you can reach deals on issues that you haven't been able to reach deals on for the past 2 years?
Public sentiment, our biggest ally. The Martin Luther King said, legislation, no, he said, the ballot, the ballot, the ballot, legislation, 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 your life, your life, your life. Calling to people's attention clearly that voting was important because what happens legislatively can impact their lives. With our transparency in government, we intend for people to see the impact of legislation on their lives and to weigh in on it. That is our strength. That is our strength. Another person who marched with Dr. King, Walter Reuther, he said the bread box and the ballot box cannot be separated. Decisions made at the negotiating table, successes at the negotiating will be overturned by what happens in legislative halls. People have to see more clearly the connection to voting policy and their lives so that they will vote and they will have an impact on the public policy. I feel very confident about it. I think Democrats come into this majority with a responsibility not to Democrat. It's not about Democrats or Republicans. It's about the United States of America. It's about the country that Ronald Reagan talked about, that he loved, the president said he loved, that we all love. We have a great obligation to honor the vision of our founders and what they were so courageous in fighting for and so brilliant in presenting to us. We have a responsibility to our men and women in uniform, the sacrifices they and their families have made over time to keep us the land of the free and the home of the brave. And we have a major responsibility to our children and their future, because this is all about, elections are all about the future. And I think there has to be a place where we can find common ground to end a situation in our country, which is that 1 in 5 children in America goes to sleep hungry at night. 1 in 5 children in America lives in poverty. How could it be in the wealthiest country that ever existed in the history of the world? How do we address that? By lifting up everyone in our society to speak to the bigger paychecks for everyone, including lifting up those at the bottom. The middle class is the backbone of America. Some of us believe that the middle class has a union label on it. So the more we can do about people having involvement in the determination of their fate. If I just may say, I brag about our candidates saying they know their why. They know why they were running. They know what they cared about and to speak to it authoritatively. They knew how to communicate with their constituents and relate to their hopes, dreams, aspirations, and concerns. My why has always been the 1 in 5 children who live in poverty, because I think it's a symptom of something else in our society about everybody not participating in the full prosperity of America. And when I say that, I say it to say that there are many ways to solve problems. That some of it is direct, some not. But I do think the American people have good heart. I respect them, those who vote with us, those who do not vote with us, and I respect all of you. Our Constitution, central to it was checks and balances, but further to it was the Bill of Rights. And I do believe that the freedom of the press is the guardian of the gate of our democracy. While we may not always like the press we get, that's not the point. The point is that it's important that you're there to speak truth, to hold us accountable. And I don't think that it's a good idea to undermine the freedom of the press in our country, because we are an example to the world, this great beacon. Ronald Reagan talked about the Statue of Liberty, the beacon of hope to the world, not only to incoming people, but to what we stand for. So God has truly blessed America with our founders and our values in the Constitution, as I mentioned, with the American people and their beautiful diversity, and with this beautiful land that God gave us. I work with some of the evangelicals because we believe it is God's creation. We have a moral responsibility to be good stewards. So when we build the infrastructure, we have to do so in a green way. For these and other reasons, I look forward to working with you along the way. Thank you for being here today. Again, we're very excited about our new members who will be coming next week to start for the fresh start in a new Congress. Thank you all very much.
Responsibility for the great reform.